Hey guys, welcome back to Qualifications class, and in today's lesson we're going to be talking about Article 1 of the Constitution. We're talking Senate, we're talking House of Representatives, we're talking committees, legislative powers, non-legislative powers, limitations, what it takes to be a senator or a House of Representative, and finally the mythical process of how a bill becomes a law. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you came to this video because you're looking to learn a little bit more about this, and you know what? You came to the right place. So let's take a journey, take about 10-15 minutes maybe, and we're going to get a little bit better understanding of Congress. Okay, so the first thing we need to know about Congress is that it's two houses. It's bicameral, okay? We have the House of Representatives and we have the Senate. The House of Representatives is based on population. The Senate's based on equality. 435 members in the House, 100 in the Senate, okay? The leader of the House of Representatives is called the Speaker of the House. They have the ability to sway legislation and, get the movements going. They're kind of like the debate runner. The Senate's run by the Vice President officially, but he's really never there. So what they do is they have this person called the President Pro Tempore. He's there just kind of sit as a chairperson, okay? Vice President really comes in to break a tie because, 50-50 would make 100, and they would need that one extra vote just in case there was a tie. In the House of Representatives and the Senate, there are things called committees, and committees get bills to be approved to have the chance to become laws. And committees, there's three types. There are standing committees, there are joint committees, and there are select committees. Standing committees are permanent committees that will always be there from term to term, kind of like agriculture. Agriculture, obviously, a very important thing, and we're not going to not care about it the next year. So that's always going to be there. Those can also be broken up into subcommittees, but those are only for standing committees. For select committees, those are temporary for specific issues, kind of like when JFK was assassinated in 1963. Lyndon Johnson wanted to investigate, so they had the Warren Committee basically come up with a detailed report of what happened. So that lasted a year, and then it was done. Obviously, there's still no Warren Commission today. And then finally, a joint committee. A joint committee is when the two houses come together for a joint action, and that would be where members of both houses meet. Okay, so that's all we have. Let's move into the powers that Congress have. So the powers of Congress. The many powers that Congress has, or that they think they have. No, of course, the powers that Congress have, okay? So legislative powers are called express powers. These are powers that Congress have, and they're explicitly stated in the Constitution, okay, in Article 1, Section 8. And these are coining money, it's declaring war, it's ratifying treaties, it's ratifying, regulating commerce between us and other countries, and finally regulating the military. There are also implied powers, which are powers that aren't explicitly stated in the Constitution, but they're implied through these implied powers. In this sort of elastic clause, Congress has the ability to stretch its power to cover its own butt at times because they didn't say it in the Constitution. This being like the Air Force, for instance. The Air Force obviously is not explicitly stated in the Constitution, but we know the Air Force is part of the military. We don't have to say that, okay? That's implied. There are also non-legislative powers which we give to each house, and they're specific for each house. For instance, one of them is that Congress, its main job is to make sure that the executive branch enforces the laws that they make, okay? They make sure the president is enforcing the laws that they pass through Congress. The House of Representatives have two specific jobs that are really important that you need to know. One is that they can pick the president if the Electoral College does not. And finally, they are the ones that have the authority to initiate impeachment. The Senate has the power to pick the vice president if the Electoral College cannot, and they also serve as the jury for impeachment. They don't initiate, that's the House, obviously. There are also things that Congress can't do. I know it's sad, Congress wishes they could do more, but they can't, okay, because of checks and balances. For instance, they cannot infringe on our Bill of Rights, our first 10 amendments. You can't infringe on those rights. The second thing that they can't do is that they can't favor one state over another. Don't you hate that? Don't you hate when your parents do that? They favor, one child to another. Well, they can't favor states over states. Another thing they can't do is they cannot tax exports. That's one thing we can't. If we're exporting something to England, they don't tax us for that. All right. Okay, so we know that. Let's jump to what it takes to be a senator, just in case you were maybe interested in running. All right, let's take a look.
Are you 25? Have you been a citizen for 7 years? And do you currently live in the state that you wish you could represent? Well, guess what? You can be a House of Representatives member.
But, real talk, are you 30? Have you been a citizen for 9 years? And do you currently reside in the state that you want to represent? Then you can be a senator.
Does that mean that you don't have to be born in here, the United States, to be a senator or representative? That's correct. You can be foreign. Join Ted Cruz. He's not from America.
Okay, and here's the thing. Being a senator or a House Representative member, it's got its perks. You get your own personal staff, you get a whole bunch of interns who work for you, and you make $175,000 on average. Okay, obviously your main job is representing the people of the state, and you got to make laws, and you got to help out your district. You do public works, like you try to get post offices and military bases to create jobs for your local district. You try to get public grants, and you try to help out your district by getting things passed. Sometimes this kind of gets abused a little bit, that whole pork barreling situation where you make really expensive projects that only help about like 50 people, like unnecessary bridges, let's say. But other than that, those are the qualifications it takes to be a senator or House Representative member. Okay guys, next step we're going to be talking about the steps of how a bill becomes a law, and I would sing you the "I'm Just a Bill" song, but singing off-key in North Carolina is punishable, and I don't really want to be arrested for that. So, step one, there has to be some sort of idea. It just, anybody can propose a bill. Okay, I can propose a bill. You as students or whoever, cray-crays, or watching this video, you all can propose a bill. All you have to do is get a sponsor, and the sponsor has to be your senator or representative, and that actually takes, you have to write to them, which is, I know, terrible. God forbid we have to write to people nowadays, but that's how bills get bills get proposed. You gotta get a sponsor. And what's gonna happen is, step number two, the sponsor is going to take that bill and they're going to hand it to a clerk, and the clerk's going to give it a number. If it's in the House, it's called HR, whatever the number is going to be. And if it's in the Senate, it's going to be S, then the number. Number three, it's going to go get assigned to a committee. And the committee, there's 5 things that can happen. Number one, they pass the bill. Number two, they can change it. They can make some changes. Number three, they completely change it and it doesn't look anything like the bill you proposed. Number four, you get pigeonholed, which is just a fancy way of saying ignored. And number 5, they just kill your bill. That's it. Let's talk about step number 4. Let's talk about how, let's say the bill does get passed through committee, then it goes to the floor. Now in the House and the Senate, there are 2 separate ways. In the House, it doesn't matter the order. What happens is the Rules Committee, one of those standing committees we talked about earlier, they decide on the order that it goes through. And what happens is some bills will never get a chance to be voted on. And in some instances, that's a good thing. In some instances, if your bill is just unfavored by the House of Representatives because maybe you're in the minority party, you're never going to get a chance to get your bill passed. In the Senate, it's a little bit different because then there's something called the filibuster. And if you are like somebody who had to sit through Ted Cruz's 21-hour filibuster, a filibuster is essentially talking a bill to death. So much talking that people have to listen and listen and listen, and if they just get so mad at the person for talking forever, they just cancel the bill. There is a way to end a filibuster. You have to get a 3/5 vote in the Senate. It's called closure, and with closure, like I said, 3/5 vote, and that kills a filibuster. Now, step number 5, if a bill passes, it goes to the next House, and the process is repeated. Both houses have to pass the identical bill. There can't be any differences. If there are any differences, then a conference committee meets and they try to work out the problems with the bill. Step number 6, if the bill is passed, it then goes to the president and he can do 3 things. He can sign the bill into law, he can veto it, and then he can pocket veto it, which means he kind of just doesn't do anything for 10 days. The power of the president's veto can be checked by Congress. If the bill gets vetoed, it goes back to Congress, and they have to do the whole voting process again, and it's a 2/3 vote this time. Now, if that happens, which is really rare, then it overrides the president's veto and becomes law. Very rare. 10% of all of our bills that have ever been passed, 10% of the bills that have ever been vetoed have ever gotten overrides. That being said, with a pocket veto, all it has to do to override a president's pocket veto is Congress has to meet in session. Okay? All right, guys, that's it. I hope you guys have a good understanding of Congress. I know that was a lot of information that I just threw at you, but this should help you guys on your test on the upcoming week. And if you are watching this just because you like my YouTube videos, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about Congress. All right, executive branch is up next.